Okay, this is from ProWrestling.net, but it's going to be reviewed by Jake Barnett, co-senior staffer at ProWrestling.net. So this was in Chicago, aired live night before Thanksgiving, obviously. Punk's music opens the show in Chicago, and as he made his way to the ring, MJF's music hit. He had a microphone in his hand and made his way into the ring. He and Punk were across the ring from each other, and MJF smirked as chants of CM Punk started in the crowd. Punk said, "It doesn't feel so good to get interrupted, does it, Punky Brewster?" He said Punk had hurt his feelings last week and it was almost as bad as that time that he quit and went home like a little He then brought up the pipe bomb promo and called it Punk's best moment. But MJF called every moment of his the best MJF moment. He called Punk a one-trick pony, but he respected for what he accomplished and that he was straight edge. Then said that Punk looked like a meth addict for a guy who was straight edge, and that he'd have to drink 8 shots of whiskey to look himself in the mirror if he looked like him. And MJF then brought up that Punk has asked who in AEW he looked forward to wrestling, but never mentioned his name, and claimed it's because Punk didn't want none. He said Punk wouldn't get the chance to go back and forth with him because he's about to finish him faster than his UFC career. MJF says you can drop all the little pipe bombs you want because he's MJF and he drops nukes. Already, this was one hell of a segment, and people have been looking forward to this. So Punk gets his chance. He gets a mic, tells MJF that he was disappointed in him. He said they didn't need to start there. He said he had no idea that his name was Maxwell. He thought MJF stood for My Jealous Fan. He then said he was in MJF's head, and that's probably because he has his poster on his wall. He said he silenced MJF last week without saying a word, and that MJF had 7 days to come out here and do his best stuff, and he just went with the low-hanging fruit. And the reality of the situation is MJF is just a less famous Miz. MJF replied that was really creative stuff and almost what he wanted. He said it reminded him of Punk's entire AEW run so far. MJF said nostalgia was a drug that causes us to misconstrue our memories, and Punk is nostalgia. He admitted he was a fan because at one time Punk was the best on the mic and in the ring, but now he says nothing of interest and struggles to defeat the easiest competition. MJF accused Punk of going soft and did an impression of Punk's promos where he made him out to be a robotic, which was great. I'm CM Punk and I'm happy to be insert city, and he was doing like that. I like that a lot. He moved on to call him PG Punk and asked where the rebel he used to love went. He might as well be out here preaching hustle, loyalty, and respect. MJF began to address him as PG and said the problem is that he can see him, and that Punk says he's back for the young talent, but he also said publicly he wanted a bunch of money. He said Punk sat at home for 7 years writing comics no one reads and movies no one saw. In the other company, he was the underdog that people wanted to be showcased as the number one guy, but he's not sure he can hang anymore or if he ever could. He said he didn't envy him, but he knows how Punk envies him. He called himself a promoter's dream, while Punk was a tatted-up loser from the lumpiest part of the Midwest called Chicago. Further insulted Punk by saying he was nothing but Mr. Second Best, whether it was You Can't See Me Man or the King of Kings. Punk was always number 2. And now that he's in AEW, MJF is that guy because he's better than him and he knows it. Punk responded there was a little truth in what he said. He was a little scared about whether people would remember or care about him, or whether he still had it. And he said that he's not scared anymore, especially of him, because he was selling out MSG when Maxwell was marking out for Rosie O'Donnell. Punk said he had just enrolled himself in a college his parents couldn't afford. Max talked too much just like he used to, but he can't back it up without his backup. He said it eats up to MJF that he went after Darby Allin instead of him when he came to AEW, and they didn't need a ring to beat him. After a pause to soak up the crowd, Punk went on to say that MJF goes on about being the strongest of the 4 pillars, but he didn't realize he'd already been replaced by Britt Baker. He's happy to be number 2 with a bullet because Chicago's the second city, not because there's a better one, but because when it burned down, they built another one right on top of it. He said the only way MJF will ever be number 1 around here is if everyone waits around long enough for Tony to have a daughter that he can marry. He said his first gift to Chicago is ice cream bars, but his next gift will be punching MJF in his right here and now. MJF started to take off his suit and then rolled out of the ring and bailed. Punk versus QT is next. So this got, mostly rave reviews from what I read. I'm sure there's some haters out there and whatnot, but it definitely grabbed my interest, and I was glad that I put the show on this morning to catch up to it. And what did you think about these two finally going toe-to-toe on the mic?
I think it was a very, very long segment, but it was good. It wasn't great, but it was very good. We needed this from Punk. Mm-hmm. There's some good, really good lines. One of my favorites was "You're just a cheaper version of Miz" or whatever he told him. That was great.
Yeah.
But the robotic thing was great, creative. Everything, they did some good stuff. A little bit too long, but it was good, and that's what we needed. And we need more out of Punk. I still don't think I'm not getting the Punk I want yet.
Yeah.
I think he's starting to warm up to it, though. Which was good.
So and of course the best part, and I'm I was saying this to my dad earlier. I'm sure that when Punk came in, it was kind of like someone's eventually going to mention UFC to him. Someone's eventually going to hit him with that line, and it was probably like, hey, nobody do that because in 3 months, Max has got that line. We're going to save that for him, you know?
Could be.
Yeah, but Punk and QT was next. Camarado and Solo came out with QT. And
my question is, why is he wrestling Punk? Why is QT wrestling Punk?
I would say Tony probably just thought it would be a good match. Other than that,
there's no build-up. There's no interest. That's what's killed Punk.
They tried to do it on commentary a little by saying, "Hey, you know, QT won 12 straight matches this year," and
That's
try to build him
not how
up.
you build up a match.
Punk landed several body slams in a row, seemed to be having a good time, and QT dominated a little bit, landed a jumping Liger bomb, and then Punk started his comeback with a lariat and some neck breakers. Hit his knee in the corner, short arm clothesline, and he headed up top, landed a Macho Man elbow, and hit the GPS for a victory in 10:51.
And here's the other question: why did it take him so long to beat him?
Which is things we've said and Disco has said, and things that MJF then said in the promo, which is, you know, hey, you're having trouble with the easiest competition, which was a good line as well. Punk celebrated with the crowd. Gun Club versus Bear Country is up next. Backstage, Tony interviews Christian, Luchasaurus, and Jungle Boy. Christian said that they have momentum, and their confidence can't help but grow. When you feel that way, good things happen. And he revealed Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy are the new #1 contenders to the AEW Tag Team Championship. He said what they have now is confidence in Christian Cage, and he would make sure they won the tag titles. This guy's take, same thing. I have no earthly idea why CM Punk needed 11 minutes to put away QT. Could have gone 5 minutes there, Max, especially after how fired up he was supposed to be after the opening promo. Shouldn't that energy transfer somewhere?
Right. That's a good point.
And he also says Christian seems to be taking on a bit of a darker tone, but I might be reading too much into it. Probably not. If Christian's threatening to help these guys win the belts and basically saying I'll cheat, that is kind of a darker tone. Backstage, Eddie Kingston was asked about Jon Moxley. He said some nice things. Now, this is a follow-up on last week when Disco was questioning why is Eddie in promos going, you know, kind of this, I'm just going to go to catering. So when they come to him this week, he's just backstage eating like a piece of cake at his table. Right. It's like, what? I don't understand whatever the inside is there. But 2.0 and Daniel Garcia walk up. They apologize for what they said last week, and they said they read his article in the Players Tribune, but told him he wasn't hungry anymore. Parker said he knew Eddie a long time and said they were there to help him, and suggested that Eddie hadn't been able to help Jon Moxley. Eddie freaked out, and Garcia threw his drink in his face, probably supposed to be coffee.
Right.
A brawl broke out, and officials had to break it up. Gun Club comes out. Bear Country's already in the ring. It's Billy and his son Cole.
Okay, and let me just say this. You know, 2.0, friends of the show, Rub, always comes off as annoying, but there was a really JoJo line that Eddie threw, and I don't know if you heard it, where they tell him, you're not hungry anymore. He goes, well, how can I not be hungry if I'm eating this piece of cake? And he had a piece of cake in front of him.
Yeah, that's... Yeah, I like
in
that.
The night.